Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're exploring a really powerful idea about building inner strength and independence. It comes from quite a fascinating philosophical tradition. We've got this one source text laid out here, and it really unpacks the whole concept, gives us the historical background, and importantly, helps us see how it applies, right now. Think of this as your direct path to understanding what it really means to stand firmly on your own feet.
Yeah, and what's so insightful, I think, is seeing how this principle, which might sound a bit like modern self-help sometimes, is actually deeply rooted in established teachings. We'll dig into its core meaning, contrast it with how things used to be, and look at some, well, practical ways you can actually build the strength yourself.
Right. Our goal here is pretty simple. Help you grasp just how significant cultivating your own self-reliance is. Not just for you personally, but for how you engage with the world, how you can help others. Okay, so let's dive right in. So peeling back the layers, the heart of this deep dive is something the source calls developing self-power. What exactly is this all about, according to the text?
Well, the source explains it as essentially building your own inherent capability. That's the mental, emotional, and sort of practical strength you need to manage your own life, your own responsibilities. And it also means you can genuinely help others who, truly can't help themselves. It's not about enabling dependency. The text frames it as a pretty universal principle, really. It applies to everyone unless they're maybe absolutely helpless, like tiny infants or someone severely incapacitated.
But it's definitely more than just, like, physical strength.
Oh, absolutely. Much more. It's about inner fortitude, taking ownership, your decisions, your learning, your actions. The source really emphasizes being the agent of your own life.
I like the examples the source gives. They make it really clear. Like,
Mhm.
um, tackling a big project, maybe for school or work, doing the research yourself, planning it, seeing it through on your own steam,
Hmm.
instead of waiting for someone else to kind of spoon feed you bits or do parts for you. That feeling,
Yeah.
that I actually did this competence.
That's a perfect one. And the text also mentions learning a new skill. So instead of just wishing someone would teach you guitar or, say, coding, you actively go out, find the tutorials, the resources, and crucially, put in the practice yourself. It's about taking responsibility for your own growth, your own improvement.
Right. And here's a really key point the source makes. It isn't saying you should become some kind of hermit, right? It stresses that building this strength isn't just for you. It's actually what makes you capable of being a strong, reliable support for others,
Yeah.
your family, your community. You can only really help effectively if you're not dependent yourself.
Exactly. So if you boil it down, this concept from the source, it's really about empowerment, but empowerment that's earned through self-reliance.
So thinking about your own life for a second, can you maybe recall a time you did something entirely on your own effort and felt that, that surge of capability, that pride? Hold on to that feeling as we go deeper.
Yeah, and to really get why cultivating self-power is so important, the source gives us some context. It contrasts it with past societal patterns, highlighting lives that were marked by significant dependency.
This is where it gets really, really interesting, maybe a bit eye-opening too. The text describes times, or perhaps cultures, where people were just heavily reliant on family structures, parents, older siblings, spouses,
Mm-hmm.
not just for like help in a crisis, but for their day-to-day survival, their social standing even.
Mm. And it wasn't just about simple family support. The source describes situations where this dependency could make people really vulnerable. It mentions people leaning heavily on wealthier relatives, or even whole families facing ruin because one person's debts or bad luck drag everyone else down. That interconnectedness could be a double-edged sword.
And the text specifically calls out how this was often disproportionately tough for women.
Oh, absolutely. The source explicitly notes that, historically, many women depended on their parents, then their husbands after marriage, and then maybe their children in old age. They often faced huge barriers to getting an education, owning property, or just making basic life choices independently. It led to this feeling of being constrained or kind of stuck within those expected roles and dependencies.
Wow, yeah. That really paints a picture of widespread limitation. The source seems to imply that this kind of systemic dependency wasn't just a personal struggle. It could actually hold back families, maybe even society as a whole. It created a culture where people might just passively wait for someone else to fix things instead of taking initiative themselves.
And you can still see faint echoes of that sometimes today, can't you? Maybe not as extreme, but in subtle ways.
Like what?
Well, maybe expecting family members to always handle chores you could easily do, or waiting for someone else to start solving a problem that affects you directly.
Yeah, or even simple stuff the source mentions, like expecting someone else to always make your food or manage your living space.
Exactly. Those little areas where you might just default to expecting others to step in, the text suggests those are actually missed chances to build that bit-by-bit self-reliance.
Makes you think. Have
Uh-huh.
you ever caught yourself waiting for someone else to handle something you probably could have, or maybe even should have, dealt with yourself? What did that feel like? Something to reflect on. Okay, so the source is clear. Building this self-power isn't about cutting yourself off. Actually, having this strength puts you in a position to help others. But, and this seems crucial, there's a principle about how to help wisely, differentiating between enabling and empowering.
Yes, this is a really key distinction in the text. It strongly advises against just, doing things for someone when they're perfectly capable of learning or doing it themselves. That just breeds dependency. The actual goal, according to the source, is to help them develop their own capacity, their own strength.
Ah, okay. So instead of always being the rescuer who swoops in, you're more like a guide, a mentor, maybe.
Precisely. The source is quite direct about it. It suggests you shouldn't just give in to requests that come from, well, laziness. It uses that classic teach a person to fish idea rather than just handing them the fish. You support their process of gaining the skill.
And the text applies this way of thinking to things like family finances and relationships, too. It mentions fairness in distributing resources, making sure it supports capability, not idleness.
Yeah, exactly. It suggests that in modern partnerships, like marriage, both partners should ideally strive for their own areas of competence and share responsibilities. That includes things like financial understanding and management. It's about avoiding a situation where one person is entirely dependent on the other. It reflects a view of partnership built on mutual capability, shared contribution.
It feels like a call for everyone, really, within any kind of unit, family, team, whatever, to actively pitch in and build their personal capacity. It makes the whole group stronger. That principle seems super relevant everywhere.
It definitely prompts us to ask ourselves, doesn't it? When someone you care about is struggling, how can you offer support in a way that actually helps them grow stronger in the long run, rather than just, making them more reliant on you? So moving on to the practical side, our source offers some really actionable guidance on how anyone can actively cultivate this developing self-power in daily life. And it stresses this is for everyone, regardless of background.
Right, and at its core, it seems pretty straightforward. Basically, embrace independence wherever it's realistically possible. Avoid living in a state of unnecessary reliance. Save that dependency for times when it's truly unavoidable, like the source says, early childhood, severe illness, situations like that.
And practically speaking, this translates into taking deliberate steps. Things like acquiring knowledge, pursuing meaningful work or study, and willingly taking on responsibility in your own life and within your family or community.
So for you, listening right now, this could mean, say, really dedicating yourself to mastering a subject you care about. Or maybe starting smaller, like the source suggests. Learning a specific practical skill online if you've got a personal goal, maybe it's related to a hobby, or even a potential career path you're exploring.
hmm The text gives these relatable examples too, like how it starts early. A young person managing their allowance, saving up for something they really want instead of just asking for it. It highlights that building self-power often starts with these small, consistent acts of self-management, maybe even a bit of delayed gratification.
And the source is really explicit about championing environments where everyone gets the opportunity to build this strength. It argues for equal access to education, to jobs, particularly stressing why that was historically so important for women. And it emphasizes shared responsibilities at home, too. Simple things like doing chores without constantly needing to be asked. The source notes that contributes to this sense of shared capability of independence within the household.
Yeah, setting personal goals and actually following through, whether it's dedicating specific time to study each night or learning to cook a few healthy meals for yourself or just managing your own schedule effectively. These are all presented as fundamental ways to build that internal sense of control, that confidence, incrementally, step by step.
So, putting it all together, this part of the source is really like a roadmap. It's about taking intentional actions, even small ones, every day to boost your personal competence and embrace responsibility. So what's just one small practical action you could commit to this week? Something concrete to practice building your own capability, your own self-power. Okay, we've really dug into this concept of developing self-power. We've looked at the definition, contrasted it with the past, talked about helping others wisely, found practical steps. So wrapping up, why does our source suggest this principle is so, well, profoundly important?
The text makes a really powerful argument, actually. It says that cultivating self-power is much more than just personal improvement. It's presented as the necessary foundation for becoming someone who can genuinely contribute to the well-being of others. It builds confidence, it fosters a deep sense of responsibility, and it's seen as, well, essential for making a truly positive impact on the world around you.
The underlying idea, it seems, is that a society where more individuals actively cultivate their own capability and take responsibility,
Mhm.
that society would just inherently be more robust, more dynamic, more resilient.
And for you listening, regardless of your age or where you are in life, the source basically suggests that every single act of taking charge, whether that's finishing a tough task on your own, managing your money or time wisely, or even guiding someone else to learn a skill, each one is a vital investment, an investment in building a stronger, more adaptable future version of yourself.
Yeah, it's really about stepping into that role, isn't it? Being the architect of your own experience rather than just passively waiting for circumstances or other people to build it for you.
Which really leads us to a compelling final thought that the source leaves us with.
So this deep dive into the source material has really laid out the value, the inherent worth of cultivating personal strength and independence. It shows us it's not just about you, it's about becoming capable of supporting others effectively too.
Yeah, the text offers a pretty clear path forward, doesn't it? Seek knowledge, work diligently, share responsibility fairly, and offer support in ways that actually build capacity in others, not dependence.
So here's something to think about. If building self-power genuinely leads to greater personal freedom and a stronger ability to contribute meaningfully, which area of your life right now might benefit most from you taking just one small intentional step towards greater independence this week? What's that one thing you could choose to really take charge of? Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Until next time, keep exploring these ideas, keep learning, and keep building your own power.